Hi everybody, welcome to Pack Unleashed and thanks for joining us as always. John, just to let you know, sadly can't be with us today.
We fired him.
We got rid of him. He just wasn't pulling his weight, unfortunately. And we sent him off packing to go camping somewhere.
He has. He's in the wild outreaches of Uckfield.
Yeah, contemplating on just what he did wrong. But, you know, hopefully we'll hear from him again soon. So as you can probably tell or hear, today's episode is me, Dominic, and I am, as always, joined with the glorious Matt.
Yo!
Yo. So today we're going to be exploring the subject of innovation. We're going to be covering lots and lots of stuff. We're going to be discovering what innovation is. We're going to be talking about why it's important. And then also we're going to be talking about how it can drive your team or company to become more innovative. So lots of innovation words, basically. We'll also be talking about the innovation giants, and we'll be sharing some examples of what makes good innovation, and also just talking about the impact it can have on your business.
If you hadn't been able to tell, Dominic is especially excited about this episode.
I am super excited, so much so I have had to wheel myself to the other side of the room so I don't shout at the microphone, which may still happen. So Matt may have to tweak the levels, but I will do my best to avoid that.
I'll be in the background like this.
Yeah, Ross from Friends,
That's
by
it.
the way, just so people at home cannot see that or hear it even.
So Dominic, tell me, why is innovation so important?
Well, as the director of innovation here at PAC, innovation is a topic that, you know, as you would expect, excites me a lot. That's kind of why I do the role here, and it's something I hold very close to my heart and I'm passionate about.
It's one of those words that's used a lot, though, isn't it? And sometimes there can be things like innovation theatre, and, you know, like innovation is almost a buzzword these days.
It is a buzzword, and having been to a lot of innovation events myself, often it can come across as a little bit boring as well. I think it is. You're right. It's a buzzword. Lots of people are trying to do it, but I thought what would be good is I've got a definition here. Ooh. Gathered from the World Wide Web.
Definitions.
Definition. So I thought I'd say that first and just see if that resonates with us. So innovation is the creative development and implementation of a new product, process, or service with the aim of improving efficiency, effectiveness, or competitive advantage. Wow. I mean, it couldn't sound...
Sounds quite long-winded, doesn't it?
Sounds long-winded.
Innovative. It's not a very innovative way of saying it.
It doesn't sound very innovative. I saw a different one, which was like a New Zealand definition, which was innovation is the successful exploitation of new ideas. But again, equally, I don't know if I felt that resonated with me particularly.
So how would you describe innovation then?
I think sometimes people just think about innovation directly as the impact it has on the product and the business and stuff like that, which obviously it does. But for me, innovation starts at home, and it starts very much with the people within the organization. And for me, people are what makes things innovative, because obviously that's where ideas come from. They come from us human beings.
Yeah. People
together and allowing them in this kind of entrepreneurial way to have the flexibility to be able to explore in their own everyday space. So allowing them to kind of come up with new ideas, and whether they fail or not is almost irrelevant. You just have to be able to give them that space to collaborate as well. And
it's a big trust, isn't it?
And really? Trust, yeah. Having the trust.
I think that's interesting, actually, because, you know, I think a lot of people talk about innovation and they think it's just about ideas. But actually, I'd argue it's not just the idea, it's the execution of that idea. You know, I remember the number of people that said to me after eBay came out, I had that idea, but there was no execution of it. So I think there's a blend, isn't there, between the idea, the innovative idea and concept, and then the actual execution of that and turning that into a product or a service or a business or whatever that's live. That's quite important to make that connection.
Definitely, and you're right. It is important, obviously, to make that connection, because, you know, ultimately, if you are an organisation, that's going to be something that's going to be important to you. You know, what you don't want is to just have a bunch of people albeit cool people, like having fun, just coming up with bunches of ideas that don't really lead anywhere. So
I think that's the term, isn't it? That's the innovation theatre, where it's like, oh wow, we got this great idea, we can do this, we can do that. Everybody gets all excited, buys into it, but then because it can't be executed, it falls away. Which I think is one of the reasons that lots of big companies are kind of scared off by innovation as well. It's almost like it's been tried, but when it's not carried through and it's not fostered and nurtured within the business, and it remains, then it feels like a failure, and actually you get a bit scared of it.
Yeah, I think there's a tendency for a lot of people to kind of jump on and be like, oh my God, we need an innovation hub and stuff like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think sometimes that then has the tendency to be exactly what you just said there. There's a lot of pressure to build that innovation hub and a team. And a lot of the time, although they might be quite collaborative in their own little space, there's not that connection with the rest of the company and often the higher level C-suite. And that's where there's a bit of a disconnect. And those people ultimately, those kind of innovation hubs then just shut down because they don't really have the full support of the organization to drive things forward. Or if, they're not coming up with, say, the right type of idea, then it's seen as a bit of a waste of money, when actually I don't think that's necessarily true. And I think also that happens as well sometimes when you just get outside expertise in, rather than trying to focus on building potential people within your team.
Absolutely.
And we'll come on to that, I guess, in a sec. But because I wanted to talk about why innovation is important.
I've jumped the gun again, haven't I?
Jumped the
I
gun.
get so excited about that. It's just like all answers with me. Like, cut out the foreplay, straight to the answers.
Well, it's natural, isn't it? Because you want to just get straight in there, and your brain's ticking, you're coming out with all this stuff, and it's all good, and it's fine. But yeah, so I thought we'd talk about, because obviously we've given you a definition of what it is, but then in terms of like why it's important, I thought I'd just run through some stuff I grabbed off the net to talk through what people are saying, because I think it's quite a good one then for us to kind of jump off the back of that. So, I mean, every day new ideas are generated, and that's obviously true, and new products are created, new methods are executed, and people are constantly managing to look at problems in a different way, and come up with new solutions, which is great. And there does, to an extent, I think sometimes from smaller companies or even bigger ones, it feels like there's always this continual thing of people coming up with ideas and they're not. But, companies that are truly innovative have really honed what it is in their own organization to be successful. So that's a kind of a ramble fest of things that grabbed off the internet.
Ramble fest. Wow. We have to have an episode called Ramble Fest coming up. That is absolute genius.
There's something for me that's really fun about being innovative, and and I suppose you could argue, oh, well, you're quite creatively minded and therefore it's a bit easy for you. Would you not?
Sorry.
But for me, it does, like I was saying before, it really does start with the people, and it really empowers teams to work better together. And also the other thing I think I'd like to talk about is just like the art of play. And I think this is something that we've sort of forgotten about almost. It's sort of like there's all these companies out there, certainly like bigger corporations that are seeing people like Uber and Airbnb and whoever. You could just literally insert any kind of modern brand at the moment that's doing well, and kind of look at them and be like, how have they gone from being a startup into this like massive corporation and almost, I guess a few years back would probably have been perceived as just nobodies, to suddenly taking over and being more successful than they are. And it's sort of like, well, how is that happening? What is it about them as a company that they're doing that we aren't? And how can we try and bring that into our organization?
Oh, you mean like you want to be the Uber of X or the Airbnb of Y kind of thing?
Yeah, I think there's this question, isn't there? It's like, well, okay, I get what innovation is. I'm seeing other people doing it and I feel like we should do it. And like I said, then they might go, we need an innovation hub instantly and jump to that. And actually, that's just perhaps not the way to go. And I feel like there is a lot of, obviously in bigger organizations, there's a lot of red tape around trying to get these things off the ground. But ultimately, like if you really want to try and bring innovation into your company, it really, like I keep banging on about, it really does start with the people.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, I completely agree with that. I feel that, you know, lots of big companies would love innovation, and a lot of the people on the board want to be innovative. But if you don't have a company culture where you can collaborate creatively with other people, and you have space to fail, and it's not about protecting a fiefdom inside or a silo inside a big business. And actually, you know, you're willing for something to be better for the company than it necessarily is for your department. Those types of programs tend to fall apart. And that's where you see those kind of innovation hubs, in my experience, coming into these big companies and then slowly, silently disappearing, because it becomes, in the wrong environment, a self-serving process for boosting a certain part of the business. And I think where you're talking about people, that's the key area, because it's about a culture of innovation and the space to fail and the space to grow together and the space to try new things that has to be really, really protected to make it effective.
Yeah, and I think, you know, bought in as well by you know, higher management sort of stakeholders. That everyone, I feel, needs to be able to fully understand the benefit of it. You can't just go in and be like, oh, I've spoken to XYZ, they're coming in, they're going to set up an innovation hub, we're suddenly going to be like, you know, the new best Uber or whatever. You know, it can't just happen overnight like that. It really needs to stem from a real want for change, and change is a big topic for a lot of people. And it's a big, obviously there's lots of people at the moment trying to go through like digital transformation and stuff like that, and that change sometimes can hit a bit of a barrier with a lot of people and become quite difficult to implement. And that's why I think it's important, like if you're working in an organization and you become like the head of some sort of innovation, or you get given that title, is to start thinking about, okay, well, how can I make this work in a way that gets the buy-in but creates more of a culture that will last. And that's about, like you said, giving people the trust and allowing them the space to be able to do that, to think differently, think more creatively, and become, you know, and
feel empowered.
Yeah, feel empowered. And a lot of the time in companies, you'll come across these people. They're called, and you know, people refer to them as like T-shaped people, and by that I mean, you know, they're good at what they do, they're good at their role, but then equally they have loads of other ideas and things, and are capable of doing other stuff outside of what their role is. And I feel like, you know, a lot of people are like that. You're not completely one-dimensional.
Oh, dude, I feel like a D-shaped person at the moment. My daughter sat on my lap the other day and asked me if I had a baby in my tummy. That's what this corona lockdown has done to me. D-shaped. But that's super interesting. I think a lot of the stuff that you're talking about at the moment comes from IDEO, right? From Tim Brown, and you sent me a couple of links to check out with his stuff. And I know we find him very inspiring, and that company in general very inspiring.
Yeah, definitely. They are inspiring. And the Kelley brothers are, you know, for me, are definitely inspiring as a company, you know, an innovation company. And they, you know, there's a book that one of the Kelley brothers wrote, which is called The 10 Faces of Innovation. And that for me is another really good, it's a great book, and it's a really good way of describing what these type of people are within the organization. So I mentioned like the T-shaped people, and there's a definition of that, which is a T-shaped employee is, in the context of human resources, is an individual who has deep knowledge and skills in a particular area of specialism, along with the desire and ability to make connections across disciplines. So they're good at what they do, but then equally they have that ability to flex out. And then The 10 Faces of Innovation is a really great book, because that talks about all of these different people within an organization playing a role. So when IDEO go out and they look for people to recruit to kind of join their organization, they kind of look at these 10 different faces. So they, you know, if you fit within one of these faces, then you're essentially become this like really valued part of the team, and like collectively, because I feel like you can't just be a specialist at one thing and then suddenly that's it. You really do need the skill set of multiple disciplines, and I think that's why this sort of 10 faces approach is like really interesting, because it's sort of collecting people from all around, you know, the globe, and who are specialists in all different disciplines, and bringing them together to collectively come up with new ideas and be able to do all of the nuances and stuff within that kind of idea generation itself.
It's interesting actually, because like one of the policies I had at my old business was that, you know, we would not hire, for want of a better word, arseholes, and we define an arsehole as somebody that could be technically amazing at what they do, but if they can't make that connection with other people and they can't work as part of a team and they can't collaborate in a way, then we couldn't hire them, because it only takes a couple of people like that inside a business, and especially at a higher level, to actually, cause a lot of resentment, a lot of dissent, a lot of lack of trust, and all those kind of things that can instantly kill, those kind of areas you set up. Because fundamentally, there's nothing wrong with creative, like an innovation hub, but the innovation hub is almost like a sand pit, right? Inside a big business where you can go and throw stuff around and build sandcastles. But if you can't even do that in the innovation hub, then it's never going to catch on and be part of the business's DNA. That same feeling will kind of get pushed around and people will be scared to try stuff and things along those lines. So I think you can't underestimate, as much as as a business as PAC, we'd love to be able to say, hey, look, we can come in and innovate your business for you and innovate your products and services. It fundamentally is about getting that inside your own business. It's not something you can buy in.
Yeah, you can't. You're right. You can't buy it in. It's a difficult one because obviously IDEA is different because they are an innovation specialist, and the way that they recruit people is very specific around building the bigger picture and building this innovation thing and kind of going in, and they go in to work with different companies, and they don't go in, like you said, and just say, we're going to turn your business into a giant innovation.
Ta-da!
You
are now innovative.
Because obviously that's like, that would be ridiculous to try and even imagine.
You could charge a lot of money for it.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, you could, you definitely could.
But it's just not realistic.
It's not realistic. And, there's an example that I saw a while ago of an organisation. I can't remember who it was, but basically they brought in these specialists to come and basically predict the future of like innovation and they spent
tough gig.
Massively tough gig. But also I think I suppose it was like picking up on what they were doing and looking at trends and trying to think about ways that they can kind of push that organisation on. Anyway, they were with them for a year, and I think the project, naturally was expensive. It was definitely in the millions. I think like between 1 and 5, I think it was in terms of cost. And at the end of it, they came in, they did this massive presentation on everything that they'd done over that period of time. All of the board of directors and everyone there was like, wow, this is amazing. This seems great. Super excited about the future now of our company and where we can go. Feel like we've got some direction. And a few years passed, and basically nothing happened. They built them up, they got them excited, and then they left them. And what happened was that same agency then got contacted a few years down the line by the same organisation saying, we want you to come back in. You know that thing you did for us where you predicted the 10 years of our future, and asked them to come back again. And they were like, what do you mean? It's literally been like 2 years or something. And they could have easily have been, sure, we'll come back in, we'll charge 5 million and we'll do another thing for you. But they didn't. And they obviously said, well, why, what's going on? And the mistake they made really was that they sort of set them up to fail, because they kind of gave them all of this stuff and didn't really give them a plan in terms of how to actually implement it. And they just left them. Then there was no kind of check-in or any kind of incremental building of that. The future of innovation, let's set you up and actually guide you through it over this year and get you into position at the end of it. You not just you, but the whole team are really behind it, and they have some actionable points to take forward, and we can check in with you. They just sort of dumped it on them and then left. And that is like such a big waste of time and energy and money. And often what happens in a lot of organizations when people come in, these like bigger brands come in and they try and change the way people work, and then, F off without, and don't leave them with anything. Do you know what I mean?
It's kind of like Alien, really, isn't it? You kind of need to plant the alien inside and then have it sort of burst out of the organisation and kind of almost take it over, like a parasite of innovation, where the people, that's quite dark, actually. It's maybe not quite like not quite like innovate, and not quite like
he will come and lay a parasites.
Maybe a little bit. I kind of like it. There's a kind of a bit I like it, but like if you can, like, you know, I'd almost argue every big company starts off in an innovative way, right? You could argue that some of the biggest companies now that you might not see as innovative actually are still very innovative. But initially were super innovative, like Ford, for instance, right? Pretty much took the car from being a random, joyful pastime of the gentleman class and introduced it into everybody's lives, right? And completely changed the way people live by giving the ability to have affordable transportation.
Yeah.
And super innovative, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But then you probably argue now, do they innovate as much? They probably do, but in an incremental way, as opposed to the sort of the bombastic innovation that you get from someone like, you know, Tesla or Uber or the ones that are kind of spoken about. Yeah. And it always makes me wonder, is it because of this kind of get rich quick culture where you see a company going valuation from nothing to billions or in the space of 10 years? I just think it's important to reflect on that, because I think it's really easy to sit and bash big companies and big corporate companies for not being innovative anymore. But the fact of the matter is they wouldn't exist if they weren't innovative in the first way. You know, even, you know, like the bigger companies, like you even think hundreds of years old, like Rothschild, and, you know, making their money by getting information back from the back of the Battle of Trafalgar before anybody else. So they could, you know, buy up bonds and then sell them again quickly, which kind of like set them up for, you know, 100 years.
Yeah, definitely.
Not the nicest type of innovation, I'll grant that. But I think it's really important to remember that, like, when you roll it back to people, and I like to see the best in people, and I think 90% of the people inside big businesses are passionate about that business. They're excited about what they do, their heritage, and they want to be innovative. But unfortunately, the size and the scale can sometimes take away that place that they can have that freedom to truly fail and learn and come up with something groundbreaking. And it's much less scary to aim for incremental change than it is for that one bombastic push.
They focus on like efficiency, you know, as opposed to change, and that's fine. You know, like, I think you're right. Like, at one point, 100%, like, companies like this were massively innovative, and that's the reason why they are so big. In the world we are today, it's ever changing, and that's never going to stop. Or admittedly, like, some of these younger companies that are coming up and they're being quite innovative and they're doing quite well, they might not necessarily have the longevity that some of these other brands do right now.
Oh, they probably will. I think it's probably the old Ford, you know, in whatever it is, in the data world or the technology world.
Yeah, they might do, but, you know, but I think in order to kind of continue moving forward, you really do have to try and ask yourself, like, you know, are we like moving with the times? Like, are we moving with this changing world that surrounds us in a positive way that will give us the longevity or the continued longevity that we need? Are we going about it in the right way?
I think it's dangerous to say big corporations aren't innovative. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, because, you know, even when you look at things like efficiency and stuff like that, you know, if you look at, is it Toyota? I think it's Toyota that came up with like the kind of is it the Kanban kind of way of working inside the factories, which kind of pushed
yes, you're right,
innovation in there.
Yeah.
And I think it's innovation almost in different ways than these kind of big like headline products, but you actually end up innovating in ways that you can't as a small company. This is the joy. Right. But you know, I like to think that's kind of like why, as a business, we can be innovative, because we can have those conversations, and, you know, we're not scared to upset each other or be able to, you know, it's safe for us to have different opinions on things like that, and you know, and support each other in it as well when we don't necessarily agree.
Yeah, definitely. 100% with you on that. And I think that's obviously, you know, as a company, I feel like we do have a lot of things that we align on, but I think it's good to be a little bit different. It's good to think a little bit differently, and
no one can handle two of me, and I don't think anyone can handle two of me, Tom, either, to be honest. That's why John's the mediator. John's there in the middle, keeping it all sane. John, we miss you.
And normally I'd introduce John rambling away here.
He would. He'd definitely break it up.
Innovation.
He'd break it up with some words. I think I'll put some words in here.
I think we should get him to add something in here because it's always nice to hear his idea on it. But
sorry, I took us off there on a tangent.
No, it's cool. So I feel like we've spoken a bit about what it is and I hopefully why it's important. And then I suppose in terms of like how can other people become innovative?
Yeah. What top tips do you have, Dom? So if you're a big business or a small business and you want to drive innovation inside your people and build that culture and nurture that creative seed. Sound like I'm talking about Alien again now. I promise I'm not.
So I think the answer to that is basically encourage entrepreneurship within the organisation. If you can spot those T-shaped people that we spoke a little bit about earlier, and within the organisation who are excited about change and innovating, then those people should be talking to each other. They should be collaborating.
Need some innovation cheerleaders. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, innovation cheerleaders. I think if you allow that ability for people within your team who are actually genuinely excited about that sort of stuff to kind of pursue it and give them the time to do it, you're not going to regret it. It comes back to that thing about the art of play, and I think this is sometimes what's missing. And I think as children, we love playing. We always came up with ideas. We just weren't afraid to be fun and imaginative. And we could play with 3 toys and it'd be the most amazing epic journey you'd ever been on, inside your own mind.
You sent me that great video from Tim Brown, actually, which had the art of play, his TEDx talk.
That is
just where that activity does at the beginning. For those of you that haven't seen it, where he stands up and he gets people to draw the people next to him, and the results that come back from that are just
it's such a good technique. That video, by the way, is called Tales of Creativity and Play. Yeah. We'll add a link in the show notes, but it's such a good video, and I was like, I wish I was like Tim on that stage doing that, because I think what he was able to do very quickly was bring out that kind of childish behaviour within the audience, and they all got involved very quickly, and everyone was laughing, and they were being playful, and they were probably doing something they'd not done since they were kids, or unless they were doing it with their kids. But in terms of how that sits within an organisation, I think at work, there's this tendency for everything to be so serious and everything. And we want to solve a problem, but we need to be here burying our heads in the sand and beavering away and not have the fun and the stuff where ideas really come from. We're so consumed by things that are around us, like our phones and stuff like that. We're not, very rarely do we ever have a moment to think outside of the box. We're just constantly sucked in by it, whether it's a TV or whatever. And we don't just sit back and be like, actually, we could just, for this session, get people in a room, get them to do some really fun exercises. That's what we do. When we come and run an event or we do some training or something, we push people out of their comfort zone, not in a kind of awkward way, which some people do. I hate that whole.
No, we get them to dress up as a Karate Kid. Don't we?
Yeah, yeah. We make it fun and engaging and stuff that I don't know. I hate the kind of cliche thing of we come in and we make you wear funny glasses and do stuff, and that is not what we do. It's not about embarrassing people, but it's about making light of.
I think it's experiential, right? It's about like you were saying. I think it's about giving people that ability to snap out of worrying about what the other person thinks of you or how you're going to come across, or all the kind of things that we get caught up on as adults, and actually being free to experiment and express yourself, and in an environment that's fun and doesn't feel like you're under pressure to deliver straight away. Just have fun and make space for that to happen. However, Don has said he's not going to run any of these workshops until he gets his hair cut after Corona. He's 3 months. 3 months.
My hair is mental and sat underneath a hat right now. That's my innovation to fixing the hair. is a hat.
Sorry, Don, I've taken it down another rabbit hole. I apologise.
But don't be. So the second point is don't be afraid to put your money where your mouth is and invest in the people within your organisation, and just the idea of innovation. If you want it to happen for you, don't be afraid to put a little bit of time behind it, and it doesn't need to be money, but it could be more time, because you need to allow people that thing, that to be able to kind of come up with new stuff.
Yeah, I think you. Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying there, and I think for me it's if you're going to hire people in to help you be innovative or help you, get that kind of thing. I think what you need to step away from is that sort of thinking that there's somebody that's going to come in and do that for you, and actually what you have to invest in is that space internally. To be able to build that, and by all means bring people in to support you to build that structure and to give you that way of working. But
I think that's the right word there, support. So like, obviously, it can be daunting if you might be the kind of person in your organization who's full of ideas and wants to push things forward but not quite sure how. And I think there's definitely a benefit of having someone come in and help you, guide you, but it's about at that point then being able to hand over or kind of and help you build that environment that you can then take over yourself and own it. Because, that's the other thing as well, is that you really do have to be prepared to kind of educate people who are against it. So you're always going to get these people like the devil's advocate, as we like to call them, who are always like, I like the idea, but
Ross Ham.
I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a second, which then gives them automatically free rein to just all over your idea, beep that out. Beep.
That's fine. I think everyone's familiar with that feeling.
Yeah, and they come in and then instantly they've taken your idea down to absolutely nothing and completely kiboshed it by using the just to play devil's advocate, which is just so annoying and like shouldn't be. But it is. Often it's just about educating those people, because change
I'm
is
never
difficult.
saying devil's advocate ever again after this.
Don't.
Honestly, guys, if you're listening to this, there was a look on Dom's face that literally I thought he was going to unleash. I literally thought.
Well, so anticipate there might be problems, but part of that is including outsiders. So, don't suddenly think, you're not good enough to be in my team, or you can't be, invite the other people within the organization to come and join in sessions and stuff. And that also is a good way to help buy it in. And spread it.
You want evangelists inside of your business. And if you can get the senior people in the business in there saying how great this was and seeing results coming out of it and getting behind it, that can really help you kind of get, buy-in on a company-wide level for the types of activities that you've got going on in there.
Definitely. So number 5, remember the 3 C's of effective communication. Be clear, be compelling, and be convincing. So boom. I don't know if I need
to... Tell me, clear, compelling, convincing. What the hell are you talking about, Dom?
Oh my God. Well, I think you have to be super clear on what it is that you're trying to achieve. So... And I mean, we've spoken a lot about it now, but it is like, you can't be, if you want to be innovative, you can't be, confused about what it is, what direction you want to go. You need to have like a clear stand on
that
what
purpose, that underlying purpose.
The purpose. You need the purpose. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. You've got to be compelling. You've got to be, and the same with convincing. It's got to be something that is compelling enough for people higher up in the organization to believe in it. And be able to be convinced that it's an important thing that they should be doing.
Oh, hell yeah. That's what we're talking about. I mean, anyone that knows us or has listened to us, we're very much up for design doing, like getting stuff out there and trying it. And this is the exact environment that you want to be doing that stuff in. If you sit and overthink this stuff and nothing comes out of there that's actionable or physical or tangible, then, people are just going to see it as a big waste of space and a waste of money. But if you can suddenly show people that, hey, you can take an idea quickly and test it and make something that you can put in people's hands and get some sort of level of emotion attachment behind it, then that's when the power of these hubs come alive and they start spinning. That is the exciting time.
Yeah, and that can be done super quickly. You can have that time to go away, have a think, be creative, and come up with stuff really quickly. I mean, and I know we've spoken a lot about things like design sprints and stuff like that. And one thing for us why that's important, obviously, is because it's just like a real quick way of being able to test an idea out and get it in front of people. And not be afraid to fail, because you've been given that space, right? You've been given the space. It's not about like winning or losing. It's just about taking part and like being able to explore, and in that way you can kind of cycle through things quite quickly.
Yeah. I heard a great quote. I think it was from Arnold Schwarzenegger as well, which makes it even greater. But it was something like, the experts are the ones that have failed more than the amateurs, or something along those, who have never tried. I've done that no justice, but you kind of get what I'm saying. It's kind of like, I think there's this feeling that if you're an expert at something, it means you get it right all the time. And I think especially in a business where you might have been in that for a long time and you're used to being, someone that has all the knowledge and somebody that's well regarded in that, sometimes the idea of not getting it right can be really disturbing. So by creating this kind of play pit where you can go in and try these things and experiment before necessarily having to like launch it to the wider market, just gives you so much.
Definitely.
It gives you that environment, that culture that says, you know what, it's okay to get your ideas out there and try stuff. And actually all these little failures along the way will get us to that one great thing. And the great thing about being a massive company and innovating is that you have the resources to take that to the next level, like straight away, a customer base, history, funding, all sorts of stuff that can just make it explode for you.
There's a great example that I was listening to actually in that 10 Faces of Innovation the other day, and it was basically about high jumpers. And there's basically for years and years there's just been this technique of like how to do the high jump.
Fosbury Flop.
Yes.
I know. Boom.
Yeah, and there's the guy who
Fosbury?
Yeah, he basically was like, I just can't do it this way, and like his trainers and coaches were saying, come on, look, this is the way you have to do it, and he just wasn't achieving. I think he could only jump like 5 foot or something silly like that. He wasn't clearing great heights, and I think at that point they were just thinking, I'm not sure he's quite fit for the Olympics or whatever, but then he started doing it his own way because it felt really uncomfortable for him to do it that way, and came up with this very awkward way of doing it. I'm not explaining this particularly well, but obviously this is where the Fosbury Flop kind of came in, and he started doing it a completely different way, and people were like, oh my God, don't do it like that. That looks really dangerous. You're probably going to break your back or your neck. So you shouldn't do it like that way. So although he was able to jump a little higher, doing it in his own little unique way, somehow like his team sort of coached him back into doing it again the normal way. And suddenly he was just jumping like smaller heights again. And he just, rather than like giving up then, he sort of took the initiative to just be like, do you know what, I'm just going to carry on doing it because it works for me. To a point where I can then prove it to you that actually this is the way forward. And then so he just carried on quietly doing it in the background and then jumping the way that they wanted him to jump. And then suddenly he just came out and did this crazy jump, and it was like nearly 8 foot or something, and suddenly gained like the world record. And they were like, oh, hang on a sec, is this just like a kind of one-off thing? And then he just continually kept doing it. And then he just like, no one could beat him. He was jumping heights that no one had ever jumped before. And now, as you know, the story goes, like that is like the only technique that people do now. Like that is how high jumpers jump. They use the Fosbury Flop. That is the way that they do it.
So you could argue perseverance is actually one of the key things in there. It's not about just giving up straight away. It's about actually
not being afraid to fail and be persevering. Yeah.
Don't listen to people that say no.
Exactly. Keep at it. Oh.
You can't be innovated out.
No, I'm not. You know what? I can. You know what I'm like. I can always carry on. But yeah,
we probably shouldn't. Just for your sake.
For your sake and for ours, I think we should probably wrap it up. So yeah, thanks very much for joining us today. People should definitely comment, like, tweet. What other stuff can they do?
We'd love more people to hear this, and we'd love to like hear from you guys and talk about stuff that's interesting to you and not just to us. And if there's anyone who'd love to be a guest on the show, now we've got rid of John, there's plenty of space.
There is plenty of space. There is plenty of space.
John is not really got rid of. He has just gone camping for a week. He will be back.
He has.
So John's mum, if you're listening,
it's fine. It's okay. We've not got rid of him. He's actually glamping.
Yeah, he's got fancy.
That's something you like to do, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
You love a bit of glamping.
My camping's kind of like a house but in a field. So. And on that bombshell.
Great. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and tune in next week. See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday, guys.
Bye.
Bye.